From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Today was day 18 of the Alabama Legislature's 2025 regular session. That leaves 12 legislative days remaining between now and May 19th. Before we get to the news, I want to let you know what's coming up later in the program. Yesterday, we reported on legislation allowing the Alabama Farmers Federation to offer its members health care plans. I'll be discussing that issue in depth with both a supporter and opponent of the bill later in the show to offer each perspective, so you'll want to stick around for that. It was General Fund Day in the House of Representatives. Representative Rex Reynolds chairs the General Fund Budget Committee that crafted this year's budget after Governor Kay Ivey submitted her proposal in the beginning of the session. In all, the budget totals $3.7 billion that will go towards funding non-education state agencies. As usual, the largest shares of the general fund go toward Medicaid and the state's prison system. While it is a record amount, Reynolds warned his colleagues that leaner times could be ahead for the state.
A $3,366 million general fund budget. I think today's budget is a reflection of a strong Alabama economy. And as you heard me applaud my members today, we did not spend all the recognizable revenue last year, which gave us a very strong start to the 2025 budget cycle. And this year we have even used less of that, a very small percentage of available revenue, because interest rates have not dropped at the rate we thought they would. The governor's office removed all the one-time appropriations, which is smart because some of those one-time appropriations are just that. It would not be reoccurring in the general fund budget. So they stripped those out as members came to me and asked me to reinstate those. We did not reinstate them some at their funded level from last year because we're trying to reduce revenue used, and those items were left out. So, certainly once I had committed to going to print on the budget and didn't want to step back on that. And so I joined my colleagues on the Democratic side. We walked up to the Senate, had that conversation, and we had some assurance that they would put those back in the budget, and I would protect those line items when they come back.
The budget and its companion bills now go to the Senate. The House also took up legislation that would prohibit the use of cell phones in K-12 classrooms. House Bill 166 is sponsored by State Representative Lee Hulsey, who argued that getting rid of the distraction of phones will improve student learning and behavior.
Because at the end of the day, we have two responsibilities for our kiddos in schools, and one of those things is educating them, and the other one is providing for their well-being. And I think that this is going to do both. It's going to have them focused on what's going on in that classroom, working on developing those critical social skills, and then continuing to learn how to have great debate in their classrooms, just like we did on the floor today. But all in all, I think this is going to be a game changer, and I'm really excited to see how this plays out in our kids' lives and our classrooms. There are 3 exceptions allowed in this bill. One, as you just mentioned, is the IEP 504. So if your plan accounts for that due to medical purposes, you will obviously be allowed to continue to keep your phone with you and use that. The other 2, one will be that you can continue to use them under the direction of a teacher if it's being used for educational purposes. Some of our teachers use specific apps in their classroom that are great tools for them, and we wanted to make sure that they could continue to do that. And then the last one is if there's just any situation that is going to be a threat to the life or safety of one of our students or the staff member inside that building, that they would be able to call during those emergencies for help.
That bill passed 79-15 and now goes to the Senate. On to the Senate, where lawmakers took up legislation aimed at streamlining the process for parents seeking religious exemptions from school vaccination requirements. Senate Bill 85 from Senator Arthur Orr would allow parents to submit a written declaration directly to schools, eliminating the need to obtain exemption forms from county health departments. Democratic lawmakers opposed the bill, expressing concerns about potential impacts on public health. An amendment was added requiring that if a child receives a religious exemption, parents must provide a health form confirming that the child has not had any communicable diseases in the past 12 months.
We didn't expand the law. All we did was streamline the process, and we took out of the process having to go to the health department to get a piece of paper that they have to give you anyway. It's not a discretionary function. It is a mandatory function that they have to give you the religious exemption paper. So why are we doing that? Let's just let parents affirm that they have a religious exemption as they go to the schools, and put that in writing for the schools and admit the child.
You know, you have to have an immunization form when kids first enroll. So are we doing away with that? Are kids not going to be required, parents are not going to be required to have that form? It was always a blue form, as I remember.
I don't
The
think so.
requirement for the
Yeah.
immunization form?
No, I'm sorry. I don't think so. All we're doing is you're taking out the middle step, which they're going to get the piece of paper anyway. Now, they may be browbeat, they may not. I don't know. It's just kind of a hassle to go to the health department, get the little form, and come back. We're just taking out that middle step.
The bill passed 26-5 and now goes to the House. That was the only bill the Senate took up today, partly because of a mini filibuster on the part of State Senator Roger Smitherman. He was unhappy about two things: the lack of Democratic bills on the agenda and cuts to the Magic City Classic and other items in the House-passed general fund budget. Republicans have vowed to restore those funding cuts, but Smitherman still took the opportunity to slow down the Senate.
Now all of a sudden, we're a minority, and it's a third of the agenda is not ours. We had 0 bills on here. You know, I mean, you might have saw my name at the end, but that was a co-signer. I'm not the sponsor, the main sponsor of the bill. So with that, and I've talked about that, this is probably my third or fourth straight day, and it was not addressed. So we can't be passing bills if we are not going to have an opportunity to have our bills presented to the full Senate. The second thing is that the budget in the House, it may have had more in it, but it had 6 things cut from Jefferson County, zeroed out. And yet you had other things from other counties increased. So that's no justification. And you know, I'll let you all make the determination of what I'm saying.
Today marked the 200th anniversary of the visit of Marquis de Lafayette to Montgomery. Lafayette, of course, was the French general who served under George Washington and was a hero of the Revolutionary War. Later in life, he was among the most famous men on earth, traveling the world to advocate for fundamental ideals like freedom of speech and religious tolerance. Today, Governor Kay Ivey, Supreme Court Justice Will Sellers, and other state leaders marked the occasion with a special ceremony that included some reenactments of Lafayette's famous Montgomery speech.
With America's 50th birthday on the horizon, President James Monroe sought to reunite our new country and restore patriotism. He invited his old friend and fellow Revolutionary War comrade, the famous General Marquis de Lafayette, to visit the United States. The Marquis eagerly accepted. The triumphal return of this great hero of the American Revolution was met with universal enthusiasm and renewed patriotic fervor across our hamlet of our growing nation. General Lafayette's arrival in Alabama was a turning point. For Alabamians, the Marquis de Lafayette's presence placed us on the map, elevating our status as an equal among our fellow states in the process of growing a freedom-loving nation.
I am sensibly affected by the honors conferred upon me by the American people. The kindness with which they have received my conduct has magnified my merit. I have seen here the best proofs of a great, prosperous, and happy people in the rapid advancements of the polite and useful arts and in the stability of your free institutions.
After the event inside the Capitol, a wreath-laying ceremony took place at Lafayette's commemorative marker there on the Capitol grounds. Those involved in planning the event, including Justice Sellers, said it's important to remember such important figures in American history and to make sure younger generations understand the remarkable founding of the United States. There will be a lot to commemorate over the next year. In just 2 weeks, we will mark 250 years since Paul Revere's famous ride to alert the Massachusetts countryside that the British were coming. And next year, of course, will be the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Look forward to that. Also wonder how Lafayette would feel about the way we pronounce Lafayette, the town in North Alabama. When we come back, I'll sit down with Preston Roberts of the Alabama Farmers Federation to talk about their Farm Bureau healthcare legislation. And after that, Jane Addams of the American Cancer Society joins me for the opposition's perspective. Stay with us.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Joining me next is Preston Roberts of the Alabama Farmers Federation. Preston, thanks for coming on Capital Journal.
Hey, thanks for having me, Todd.
Been a busy week for you.
Very busy. Had a lot of farmers in the State House today. Good to see boots and blue jeans.
That's right, and in a very crowded hallway. That was kind of a mess. Well, they're here because you've got legislation, this Farm Bureau health plans that y'all have introduced. There's a big hearing in the House this week. A lot of people interested in this. Can you kind of start from the beginning? Why this bill, why you've brought this bill and what it does?
Sure. Well, the Alabama Farmers Federation is a membership organization that has been in this state for over 100 years. And really the way our organization operates is that we listen to the needs of our members. Our policy as an organization, really the direction and the things that we work on as a governmental affairs staff comes directly from our members that farm in all 67 counties. And so this issue came directly from our members. We have members that fall into a category of Alabamians that earn too much in a lot of cases for federal subsidized plans, and they're small business owners. They don't have an employer who is subsidizing their plan. So we were hearing from many of our members that we're paying upwards of $2,500 a month in some cases for health care coverage. And that leads to really, really difficult decisions for a family farming operation. Many of them forced to send a spouse off the farm or leave the farm altogether themselves or to go uninsured, which is not a good option in a profession that is as risky as agriculture is. And so what we are doing is following a model that has been adopted in 10 other states that allows the Farm Bureau in those cases to offer a health benefit plan to their members that's roughly 30 to 60% cheaper than what our members can find on a commercial health insurance market.
Mm-hmm. Now, in committee yesterday, I know that there was an amended version of the bill presented opposed to what was originally presented in the Senate. What were the changes made to the bill and why?
So over the last probably 4 weeks, since the beginning of the legislative session, we have been working with leadership in both bodies and trying to listen to concerns of members, because this is the second year that we have brought this legislation.
Right.
And so we spent a lot of time listening, trying to evaluate some of the concerns, and the amended House version that we heard in committee yesterday is really a culmination of a lot of negotiations. And so the primary concern is that these plans operate very similar to a self-funded employer plan. Self-funded employer plans are not regulated by the Department of Insurance. And so we were asking the legislature to treat us very similar to those self-funded plans. What the amended version did was give some oversight to the Department of Insurance and creates a line of communication between the Farm Bureau, or the Alabama Farmers Federation in this case, and the Department of Insurance. Requires us to submit an actuarial report to the Department of Insurance annually, and also allows us the flexibility to still provide an affordable plan. In addition to those things, it provided a 1.3% tax on the program, similar to what other insurance products offer. So all in all, the amended version represents a lot of negotiations and seeks to address a lot of those concerns by members.
I see. You still have critics of the bill. They were heard in committee yesterday. Blue Cross, Cancer Society, folks like that. And what they're saying is, look, there's not enough consumer protection, right? It's not like health insurance in terms of all the regulations that come with that. Pre-existing conditions, guaranteed coverage of pre-existing conditions, guaranteed coverage period. When you sign all that, how do you respond to some of these criticisms from these groups that say that there's not enough protections for those who you intend to cover?
Sure. Well, as I said before, we are a 103-year-old organization that has a reputation that we have built over that time of serving our community, serving the state of Alabama, and we would not jeopardize that reputation if we did not believe that we could offer our members a very affordable product that is quality, that covers all the things that are necessary. And so from a protection side, just the fact of our structure as an organization that we are member run, the president of the Alabama Farmers Federation and Alpha Insurance are elected by our members every 2 years, as are our board of directors. And so there's an oversight and a governance there that we have an incentive to treat our members well. They're our members. We exist to serve them. And so we are going to make sure that we're giving them a quality product, because I can assure you, if we do not only will we lose them as a customer, but we'll lose them as a member, and we're not going to do that.
Well said, well heard. But you heard that in committee yesterday. Lawmakers a little nervous about that, saying, I'm not going to go on blind faith. So let me just ask you, as this bill goes forward, and look, I think you've got a lot of momentum behind it. That's what I'm hearing, at least. Do you see additional amendments on things like that, on people trying to add additional protections and everything, to put it in black and white, as the chairman said?
We're certainly open to hearing all the concerns of lawmakers and looking at that. We have tried to be extremely transparent throughout this process. We have tried to have conversations with each and every lawmaker to make sure that we are hearing their concerns and addressing those. And so certainly would be open to hearing those concerns. Now, whether we anticipate more changes coming, this is the legislative process. And so certainly we anticipate there to be more conversations down the road. But certainly feel good about where we are right now.
I wanted to ask you briefly, while we have a little bit of time. We don't have Mitt Walker sitting here, so we don't have our federal hat on at the moment. But there's a lot going on, not just in Alabama, but nationally, affecting farming. Thinking about fuel prices, the commodity prices, inflation that really does affect your membership. So I'm curious, what are you hearing from your membership, from farmers across the state, as it's a lot of uncertainty economically, and it's time for a new farm bill too?
Sure. Yeah, farmers are experiencing a farm economy like they haven't seen since the 1980s. And for those that understand agriculture, the 1980s was just a terrible time in the farm economy. And so what we're hearing from our members is that it is being compared to those times. Over the last 2 years, we've seen a net decline in farm income of over $1 billion. Farm expenses have increased about the same level. And so it's a really tough time for farmers, and commodity prices are depressed. But there's some optimism out there too, that trade policies will continue to get better, and that American-grown products will become more valuable over time.
Tough times, but I guess that's kind of the point behind your legislation, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Out of time. Preston, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll follow this issue going forward.
Hey, thanks for having me, Todd.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capitol Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capitol Journal and link to past episodes on Capitol Journal's Facebook page.
Welcome back to Capitol Journal. Joining me next is Jane Adams of the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network. Jane, welcome back to Capitol Journal.
Good to see you, Todd.
I know that your organization is in the State House this week opposing legislation this time, opposing the Alpha Farm Bureau health plans. Walk me through it was in committee this week. Everybody's kind of paying attention to this. Walk me through your organization's opposition to this bill.
Well, at the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, we're concerned about cancer patients, survivors, and their families. And that means we want cancer patients, people who might later on contract cancer, get cancer, to have access to quality, affordable, good health insurance. We understand that tens of thousands of farmers in Alabama are struggling to afford their health insurance, but we want to make sure that what they're offered is a good health plan that will cover pre-existing conditions, will cover essential health benefits like preventative cancer screenings, mental health, pregnancy, common conditions that people face throughout the day that wouldn't be covered, if this plan were to pass. So our concern is we want people to have affordable health insurance and admire Alpha for what they're trying to do to find their consumers affordable health insurance, but what they're offering them is not really health insurance at all, nor really is it any sort of health coverage. I mean, it doesn't even specifically state in the bill that it will cover doctors. They say that their contract will cover these things, but we want to see it in legislation. A contract is not enough. If you have a contract with 10,000 people in your program, you have 10,000 contracts, right? We want to make sure that all of the contracts cover cancer care, that they cover the essential health benefits, that they cover preventative screenings, and that they cover pre-existing conditions.
So I know that changes were recently made to the bill, basically a brand new bill.
Right.
And to meet some of these concerns that you've raised and Blue Cross has raised, trying to say more oversight, more regulations into the bill, does that get it closer to where y'all would be able to support?
We appreciated that they included some of the essential health benefits, like hospitalizations, but they don't include things like regular doctor visits. They don't include things like prescription drug treatments or mental health. So, we've heard a story from a Farm Bureau, someone who was looking to purchase a Farm Bureau plan in Tennessee, who is a medical student, a healthy young medical student who has anxiety. He was denied, coverage because he has anxiety, right? We want to make sure people with anxiety are able to be covered, and then when they are covered, that their prescription drugs are able to be covered for them as well. So what they're not really offering is going to work for a lot of Alabamians, and there's no regulatory mechanism over it. So when an Alabama consumer says, well, I thought I was covered under this, but you've denied my claim for physical therapy, they don't have any recourse, any person to go to issue their complaint, and then there's no enforcement agency over these Alpha plans either. So we're really worried what's going to happen to consumers with this plan if it's sold.
Now, talking with Alpha and hearing their testimony before the committee, they acknowledged some of this, saying that's by design. We don't want it to be a Affordable Care Act kind of the traditional kind of insurance. That's by design. Mm-hmm. It's insurance for their members. So why shouldn't they be allowed to specifically for their members, for their farmers, do what they want? I mean, nobody's putting a gun to their head.
Well, sure, they can do whatever they want, but we're here for public health, and we're hoping that our representatives and senators will look at public health and consumer protections. There simply are not enough consumer protections in this bill to protect a consumer who is sick or becomes sick, right? So we're encouraging Alabama lawmakers to put consumers first in this process and put in some basic, simple consumer protections. And then on the other side of that, while I sympathize with farmers who struggle to afford health insurance, we know that 3 out of 4 farmers have a pre-existing condition. So this isn't a best plan for them to begin with. And then I'll just lastly say, we don't have any stakes over, who has what share of the market in health insurance or not. We believe in competition, obviously that's good for consumers, but everyone should play by the same rules. It's not fair to have one company that gets to pick their consumers, gets to pick all the healthy people out of the market and leave the sick people left behind in it, which will drive up costs for all Alabamians, which is a concern. So while they say it may not be, we're not looking at the ACA, it absolutely does impact the ACA marketplace, which needs to have a combination of both healthy people and sick people in it to make it work.
Well, you mentioned some of the things you're asking lawmakers to do. Might we see some of those things via amendments? I'm assuming this thing will probably end up making it to the floor. But some of what you're saying was brought up in committee. So
Yeah.
do you imagine you could see amendments in the House? Because I'm assuming it goes to the floor in the House first.
Yeah, we're looking into lots of amendments and have spoken with a lot of lawmakers in the committee about that. We would like to see amendments on essential health benefits, pre-existing conditions, lifetime limits and caps. We don't want people to get a limit on their care because they reach some arbitrary cap that ALPHA decides. We're also looking at making sure there's enforcement mechanisms for the Department of Insurance in enforcing these plans. We also want some consumer protections in place. Like, for instance, when you sign up for this plan, you should be told it is not health insurance and that it does not cover you for pre-existing conditions. So we want to look in some consumer protections. The bill as it is, we could not support. The American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network could not support. However, we're hoping that there are changes that are made that we can support, because we do see that this is a problem that needs to be addressed. I'm hopeful that we can see some of those changes. I've been having common sense conversations with lawmakers about this bill, and they understand that we need to just have some basic protections in there. So hopefully we'll see some of those at the end of the day.
It's a big one to watch, and we will certainly be watching it. We're out of time right now, but I want to have you back to talk about Medicaid, because that's a whole different ballgame now with what's going on in the federal government.
It sure is.
So we'll have you back. Jane, thanks again.
Thanks, Todd.
We'll be right back.
Since 1997, Alabama Public Television has provided programs, services, and resources to child care professionals, teachers, and parents. Visit aptv.org/education to learn more.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. Tune in tomorrow night at 7:30 for Capital Journal's Week in Review, where we'll break down all of this week's legislative action. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.